For Christ our God is giving us instructions. Instructions that we should be following in our lives as Christians. He speaks to the apostles and he says to them to be the light of the world. And we obviously understand this in a deeper way than simply physical light. We understand this as something that speaks to our very hearts. It speaks to what we are as human beings, what defines us. And it speaks to us in terms of what we are called to be. And the first things that are said are for us not to be on display. In fact, it tells us, the gospel, the words of Christ, to shine what is naturally within us. What is that? It's something very important. It is, in fact, our true humanity. It is what Christ has laid out for us and what he offers us to be godlike. Godlike in the manifestation of how we feel and how we act, beyond just the external, beyond just following what rules and commandments are expected of people who are considered good, but to actually feel within our hearts and our minds what is proper and good, to avoid anger in our response to the world, to avoid discouragement in our response to the world, to avoid so many things that bring what into our hearts but the darkness. We are called to love those who hate us. We are called to respond with kindness to those who approach us with less than kindness. Why is that? Except that we are called to be merciful as God is merciful to us. That we are called to be God-like. This is a fearsome thing. We will not be rewarded for this behavior in this world. We will not be rewarded for these thoughts and these feelings in this world. And in fact, Christ makes it very plain to us that we shall be persecuted for all of these feelings in this world, as our brothers and sisters are persecuted in the Middle East, the Slavic lands, and yes, in this country, where we fear, some of us fear to wear the cross, because it has now become associated with something that might be considered negative. It is important for us to be witnesses for what is godlike, for the light, for the truth. This is what we should have within us. Something that is universal. Not something that is petty. Something that we are called to display. When I was growing up, I grew up in a church, in the Orthodox Church, in the Greek Orthodox Church. And I was surrounded by many young children. I was of the generation in which there were many of us after World War II. And growing up in the 60s and 70s and going to church, there were so many of us. And now there are so few. This speaks to something. It speaks to what? That there has been, in some sense, a failure. A failure to follow the words of Christ in the apostolic ministry that we are all called to have. We are called to share the faith of Christ among those who are Orthodox already and those who are not. And the failure that I grew up with was the failure to share this light, this faith, within our own community of faith. I can say that of my generation, a very small percentage today is Orthodox, let alone Christian. It is fearsome. Fearsome that there is wreckage within our community. We are now called to repair. We are called, as less than 1% of this country, to not only repair our own communities and become the light of the world within ourselves, but to go forth to others, to be apostles to others. I pray that all of us will realize within ourselves what we are called to be and how we are called to be the light of the world and to manifest what is that light, which is to be godlike. God bless you all, and pray for me, a sinner and an unworthy priest.
Blessing of the Lord be upon you through his grace and love for mankind, always, now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen.